it's fascinating to me how easily someone in one religion can find the fallacies and biases in another religion.
I think that what's fascinating,
you're razor sharp on your criticism of Islam here.
Yeah, but what I find fascinating, Jeff, is that you recognize that with other religions, but you don't do it with your own. Because
that may be the case. I'm just saying, and there's that confirmation bias coming up again.
This is Apologetics Live. To answer your questions, your host from Striving for Eternity Ministries, Andrew Rappaport.
We are live, Apologetics Live, here to answer your most challenging questions. Anything you think we can't answer, we can answer. We can answer any question that you have about God and the Bible. You doubt that? Well, come on in, join us. We're doing a live Q&A, so any questions are good. You can put them, if you're watching on YouTube, you could put those in the chat. I forget some of the Facebook pages we see, some we don't. I haven't seen Twitter questions come up. If you're on Twitter, ask a question so we could see if that shows up. There may not be a way to do that in Twitter, but hey, we're also on the Wisdom app. So if you're on Wisdom, you can ask questions there. Best thing to do, though, is go to apologeticslive.com. And there you can watch it, but also if you scroll down, you'll see the little duck icon, which is the icon for StreamYard. And that is the best way, is to come on in and ask your question. We can answer any question that you have about God and the Bible. And if I say, I don't know, just remember that's a perfectly good answer. I always have to say that because people think I was accused of being arrogant. Let me bring Drew in here. Drew, I was accused of being arrogant once because I said I can answer any question that people have about God and the Bible. And they were like, oh, really? So you just think you can answer anything? You think you're God? No, I think I don't know is a perfectly good answer. And I say it often. In fact, we said it last week. Now let's start before people come in with some questions. Mm-hmm. We had some things go on last week, mm-hmm. and there's been some chatter. Yes, chatter.
Yes.
Let me just give a note to Facebook user here who said, good evening. Whoever you are, go to apologeticslive.com. There's instructions to tell you how to get your name to show up. So we know who is telling us good evening. So there's been a ton of chatter. And one of the things that happened was we had a Black Hebrew Israelite. Oh, I'm sorry. They go by Hebrew Israelite now because they want to.
It's derogatory and offensive.
Okay. No. He told us why. Because now somehow it's not just the black slaves that are the Israelites. It includes the black and brown people. Mm-hmm. So Black Lives Matter, it opened it up and they realized they need to have to, pull Hispanics in too to their racist cult.
Mm-hmm. And Native Americans.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's what he said when we were.
I have to go back and listen to that. Okay. If he said it, I missed that. But so one of the things he did do is he put up the first time he came in, he put up the segment he was on this show. He zoomed in so that Striving for Eternity wasn't shown. That he cut all that out, and then what he did was he just played it, and so I flagged him for copyright. Well, he did one more. Mm-hmm. So what happened is he decided to get, I guess, shall we say smarter? I don't know. He decided to put something up. So let me first show this one. Let's see. Here it is. So this, if you can see, is this guy's channel. Mm-hmm. Now notice I don't hide the channels. You could see it. But I want you to see, if you see on the screen, this is not cropped out. And it says, Osh returns to Christian channel, gets ambushed by Malwan. Now that is a reference to Vocab Malone. Mm-hmm. Malwan. Now here's the thing. This is, I want you to notice right underneath that, what does it say? Unlisted. What this character did was put the full show without comment on his channel and says it here that that we ambushed him. So now Drew, we remember this guy said that he thinks that it's okay to lie to those of us who don't believe
Right.
like him.
Right.
Yeah.
We're Gentiles. We're his enemy, so it's okay to lie to us.
But notice he's lying to his own audience.
Mhm.
Yeah. He's not lying to me or us or others that don't. He's lying to his own audience. So when you accept lying, hey, anything goes. And so that's exactly what we see here he's doing. He ends up saying he got ambushed. It was no ambush. An ambush would have
He
been.
voluntarily came on and knew that we were going to be on here.
And how many guys the week before, a couple weeks before, did he have with him? Was it like 6 or 7?
That we're trying to come on. Yeah.
And so he said, hey, I'm going to bring 2 or 3 friends. And he brought a whole crew.
Yeah.
And he kept saying, well, that's my buddy. That's my buddy. Like his crew, his commander, his captain, whatever he was saying. And so now the thing is the way YouTube works, I can't flag this because I can't see the link.
Mhm.
Right? Well, I'll reach out to YouTube and find other ways to get this flagged, because basically he's doing the same behavior.
Mhm.
All right. And so this was one that you sent to me, that was done. Let's see. Was it this one? Yeah. Oh no, that's the same one that I just had up. Sorry, my bad. I'm trying to get to the one that you sent me. So you knew that this guy was doing exactly what Vocab said. He gets on these channels
Mhm.
so that he can build some stuff for himself. Now, I
And
just wanna-
because Vocab said that is like I went and checked.
So did I.
If he was doing that, and sure
and
enough,
here it is, right here.
yep. That's
Now
it.
the other one I took
He's doing
down.
it live. Yeah.
Here he did a live, but notice the name of this one. You must see Vocab or Vocab Mal 1 has an emotional meltdown. Okay. And so the reason I want to show in this is notice that the video that I just put up is not listed there.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's not there for us to see. All right. So here's the video that you sent me. And this is the full thing, that Vocab has an emotional meltdown live on Christian panel. And he says, I went back to speak to the Christian panel and they brought Vocab on to get me. I can't make this stuff up. So let's be clear. Asher, you lied to your congregation,
Mhm.
your people,
Yep.
your folk, because he wasn't brought in to get you. In fact, I was texting with him. I asked him if he wanted to come in earlier that week to say, hey, we got some people, Black Hebrew Israelites better than I, if you'd want to come in. And he said he was watching, but didn't want to come in. So if it was what you claimed, he would have been in early. He would have been in at the beginning. Now, I want you to see something. Notice what he did. He's clipped out. You see how Striving Fraternity's cut out everywhere? He zoomed in and then stuck his logo on the top.
Mhm.
Right? This is. I think this can be flagged, and I will be trying to with YouTube to flag this, because this one is removing our. It's purposely doing it to remove the citation, to remove where he got it from. There's nothing in there where he links to it, cites it. So purposely trying to avoid.
Mhm.
So that's some of the drama. Now you were actually in. I went into one of the one feed and they were warning me. I better watch myself. They're gonna get me. I'm in trouble with God because I'm speaking against the anointed.
Mhm.
Wait, I'm sorry. That sounds exactly like Benny Hinn.
Yeah.
And he's really white. I mean, he wears a white suit and everything.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
but you decided to engage with them, and there were no problems. They were really sweet to you, weren't they?
Oh, tremendously. Yeah. So, so I sent in a couple of comments, and they wanted me to come in and join the show, right? Because they do StreamYard.
You were a coward because you didn't do it.
No, I'm a coward. Except I was working, and so
Maybe they should try that.
yeah. If you know me, you know that I do FedEx, and so while I'm driving, what I have is I have a camera that sees my entire cab, and then it sees down my truck. Now that camera will flag if I'm driving and holding my phone, talking on my phone, doing anything like that. And if DOT catches me doing any of those things, I lose my DOT card. And so now I told him, I said, when I pull up to stops, I can text. I can send a little comment. I can go deliver the package. I can come back and send another comment. Boom. And then I'm on. And they had a fit with that I wouldn't come on, or I wouldn't pull over, stop my day for them.
Because you're on a clock, you're on a schedule. By the way, Jason Cave says 14 watching on here. Hit those likes. Actually, there's more than that watching. You're just seeing those on YouTube. So not enough watching on YouTube. But yeah, folks, we wouldn't mind if you would share this out even right now. Share it on different social media. That helps others to get in here, get their questions answered. We would like that. Anyone on Wisdom, if you want to let others know, if you got any questions on Wisdom, we can bring you up here in Wisdom as well. Mm-hmm. So we do have a couple questions in the chat, but we do have someone backstage. Oh no, this is dangerous. This is dangerous. We're going to have to bring in the one, the only, the Chicken Man. It's getting close, although his video is not coming up. There he is. John, the Chicken Man. He's finally taken the name that was dubbed him. It's getting summertime, so we may get to the point where we start seeing some chickens again. For folks who don't know, John would come in every week, and we would watch him. Even when he's backstage, he'd sit backstage. We'd watch him sitting outside, and all the chickens run around him. So, but it looks like he's either frozen or, I mean, actually, he looks like he just was a wax figure that melted. You know? Oh, there's like, and he keeps moving so that his camera can like fix it. There we go. Now we see his glasses and his beard. John, you have any questions for us tonight? Who knows if his internet's even working?
Doesn't seem to be.
Yep, it's not working. Okay, so we'll put John backstage, and John, you could just type your questions in that you have. So with that, by the way, I do want to give a shout out for folks to another podcast to listen to. For folks don't know, Apologetics Live is a podcast as well. So we don't only do the video live, but if you prefer audio, you can go to any podcast app, subscribe to Apologetics Live, and you'll be able to listen to the shows. I usually get them up as soon as the show ends. I try to get them up right away, sometimes the next day. But, and I do encourage you always to be listening to my other podcast, Andrew Rappaport's Rap Report. Just search for Rap Report. That's Rap with 2 P's. You'll find that one. But another podcast other than yours, I know, Matter of Theology, that you're never actually on. Only Chris is. But hey,
I recorded an episode myself. Huh?
Just so I couldn't say that?
Yeah, just so you couldn't say that. So I recorded one. I recorded a Dead Guys Reader Society on the autobiography of George Mueller.
Okay, but that's not Matter of Theology.
It is, because we started it, we produce it.
Oh, so you just threw it
on. I sent it to Chris, but Chris just hasn't posted it yet.
Yeah.
So you can blame Chris.
Look, it's because you guys wanted to go over to the Bar Network. If you stayed with us, it's easy to put it up. You could have done it. So easy, even you could have done it.
Look at me. Look at me.
So, though you are still with us, because we're different, we allow people to, we don't care if they're with other networks and things. We'll still work together and promote. So another podcast, though, for folks to consider checking out is Conversations That Matter. If you're not listening to that, you're missing quite a bit. John Harris, I've had him on here before when we talked about Keller, because he's done a lot of work. He does. Here's the thing. Okay, so Drew, you'll probably pick up on this as well. You get a lot of people that want to do discernment. They do discernment ministries. And when they do discernment ministries, they usually break a story, get something good where they figure something out. Someone's doing something bad and they expose it. And then typically what happens is they go, oh, we got to keep this going.
Right.
And so in order to keep it going, what they do is they look for something for someone to expose.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to find something. And in the process, they sometimes, when they start having trouble finding things, it's we'll take a corner here, we'll cut a corner there, we'll do different things.
Make stuff up
And
sometimes.
then they start making stuff up. One of the things I like about John Harris on Conversation Matters, he does do discernment, but he's one of these guys that does his research first. And he doesn't do just discernment. So he does a lot on what's going on in Southern Baptist, what's going on in woke Christianity. He exposes a lot of that, but he's not looking for someone to expose. But when he does talk on things, he's got a lot of good content.
Yeah.
And he's coming under fire right now because he's got the nerve to let both sides speak. And so there's been a book that came out. Steve Wolf wrote a book on Christian nationalism. And because he had him on, it's like, oh, well, you're in his camp. He actually, I think on those episodes said he disagreed with some of the things that Steve Wolf was saying. But people are giving him a hard time. Well, the reality is that this is one of the problems I see in Christianity is you got to be in our camp or and it's not just Christianity, it's everywhere. But if you're not in our camp, we cut you off completely. Here's a guy that's saying, hey, I'll let the other side speak. I'm going to be having, I packed it. I'm leaving. I'm leaving for the Michiana Reforming Families Conference tomorrow. Be doing a pre-conference evangelism training with Hearts for the Lost, and then the conference tomorrow. I'll be speaking twice, once on the foundation of the family, a second time on the role of women. But I have a new book that I just got from Patrick Abentroth called Covenant Theology. When I get back from the family conference, then I have the new Puritan conference put on by Cruciform Ministries. When I get back from that, I'm going to have Patrick on. You go, wait a minute, Andrew, aren't you a dispensationalist? Yes. So what? I've heard a lot of good things about the book, and I talked to Patrick, and I think it's, from what I've gathered, it seems like it's going to be a good book. I may not agree with it. In fact, I already know I won't, but it doesn't mean that there's not things I'm going to learn, and I shouldn't have him on. This is one of the things that I think is so lacking. Christians, what's that song? They'll know we are Christians by our hatred for one another.
I think that's it. That's
by our separation from one another.
Yeah. By our being in our cage stages. Yeah.
Yeah. Or is it our love for one another? Here, Jason Cave, who's that little icon you see next to his name means that he's a member on, and you can be a member of YouTube that supports us. And he's one of our supporters there. So thank you, Jason, for that. He says, whatever happened to civil discourse? Jason, I think it went out the window. I really think that it's lacking. And, here Bill is saying, that's why Larry King was the best interviewer. He let both sides speak.
Yep.
And so, this is what you end up seeing is, just having someone on means you're in their camp. Well, I guess I'm a Black Hebrew Israelite now.
Right.
We let him actually talk. Look, this is my show. I can come back and respond to everything he said. I can remove him and then take an extra hour to respond. We've done that before.
Since you're a Black Hebrew Israelite now, does that mean every time I agree with something, I should yell out Khan?
Yeah, I guess. So what we end up seeing though is this: as we end up, as we end up, I didn't want that up. I was trying to remove that comment, but guess I can't. I can only block the user. I guess we can't remove comments anymore from YouTube from this platform. Okay, took away functionality. Probably YouTube did it. So anyway, John Harris at Conversations That Matter is kind of come under some fire just because of the fact that he lets a different perspective speak. Now, he asked me my thoughts on Christian nationalism, and I've been asked now 3 times this week alone about this. I will admit I haven't been on following stuff on social media, especially I guess Twitter. There's some Twitter war going on over this, and I don't have time for the nonsense like that. So here's the thing. I've been asked, what's my view with Christian nationalism? So let's just look at this. Christian nationalism is a term that the left came up with to attack Christians. The purpose of the term Christian nationalism is to make the case that Christians want to cause an insurrection so that they can arrest every Christian, throw them in jail, throw them in gulags, and then we are officially and ultimately a one-party state because the biggest, strongest name standing up against them and in their way is in jail for insurrection. Now, how do I know this? Because January 6 people are still in jail for insurrection. Not a single person has been charged with insurrection. And we have seen, 3 insurrections in just the past couple of months where they've gone into state capitol buildings and didn't just sit there and take selfies like January 6th did. No, they forced Congress people out. They took over the meetings. I mean, the whole thing, okay, if there's any question with January 6th, here's the one thing you need to know. You just need to look at the timeline and realize that the Congress, the Senate, was removed. They moved the Senate out before a single person was in the building. And they moved them out because people were in the building. So they didn't disrupt. This was planned. There's no other way to explain it. The fact that Pelosi and the mayor had rejected all of the extra police force, knowing 800,000 people were there. They always try to do these million-man marches for all these nonsense things. This was the closest they ever came to a million-person march. Okay, this should have been a big deal, but it's not. And so this is the thing that we end up seeing. And so I look at this and say, I'm against the term Christian nationalism because of its purpose. And Christians are just playing right into the hands because the major media is using this to say, see, Christians want to take over this country and make this country Christian and not let us. They're forcing their religion on us. This is how they're looking to use it. Now,
kind of like forcing their religion upon us. Like
exactly. Well, that's what they're trying to do. And so the issue I have is that I don't necessarily think the terminology is good. I am struggling because when people ask me, what do I think about Christian nationalism? My response is, whose version?
Yeah.
Stephen Wolfe or Doug Wilson?
Right.
Or I just got a guy who I guess is running for Congress. They sent me they want to send me his book and have him on the show to talk Christian nationalism. And his view is different than the others. So whose view of Christian nationalism are we going to be evaluating?
And that's the thing that's been going on Twitter, right? Because at least what I noticed, because I'm not in the debate, you've got one guy addressing, and at least what it seems to me, I think he's primarily addressing Stephen Wolfe. And so he's addressing Stephen Wolfe's position, but then you have all these other people that are in the Doug Wilson camp that are talking right past the guy that's addressing it, and they just keep speaking past each other. And they're not picking up that this one guy is mainly just addressing Stephen Wolfe. But then he's also come to realize, okay, well, there are different versions of Christian nationalism. So what do you mean by the term? Because each person, like you said, has a different definition. And you mentioned Doug Wilson. Now, Canon Press is the one who published Stephen Wolfe's book.
Wait. But Canon Press is owned by
Doug Wilson.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yet they have two different views. So there, right there, if they have two different views, it at least shows Doug Wilson is willing. And maybe he doesn't have say in it or didn't know, but I'm sure he, his son, he feels so strongly about and talks about and did I think he did a documentary on, like how his church is kind of trying to do it. And so, yeah, I'm looking at this going.
Yeah. And the thing is
he's more open to other views than his own.
Well, from what I gain, I don't think the people at Canon Press agree with Stephen Wolfe. but they were willing to publish his view.
And that's the thing that I'm saying,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like here's KT is saying civil discourse ? They censor people today, canceled the platform, push their visibility online.
Yep.
But here's the thing, KT, that's not just the secularists doing it. This is Christians too. These are believers, supposedly. You know, well, I think most are, but this is ministries, parachurch ministries that are doing this stuff. Jason is saying that's the whole point of apologetics: stand firm and give a defense of the true gospel of Jesus Christ with discernment. That's what we're trying to do. KT has said, you know, with this term, she said they're calling this being the left, are calling it a seditious conspiracy, which is the whole reason I don't want us to play into those hands. She says, I don't have a problem with the term, but their problem is that they lump people together with non-Christians, etc. Yeah, they're going after what they call traditional Christians, and what they mean by that is Catholics, and that's why they're targeting Catholics. Now, guess what, folks? The Catholics are maybe one group that's not going to stand up and fight back, and so they'll go after them. But guess who's right behind them when they're saying this? Yeah, that's why they're lumping biblical Christians with them. So this is the reality of what we have to see. So all that to say, my friend John Harris is kind of cut under fire just for letting a different position, I guess, speak. So go check out Conversations That Matter for yourself and see whether or not he's being fair in his analysis of things and fair with, you know, his view.
Hold on right here. Melissa Owen, she makes a great point here. Not to mention those that worship Trump. Yeah. In Georgia here, there was a billboard that was put up with Trump on it that was quoting Isaiah 53 as though it pertained to Donald Trump. Well,
okay. Yeah, that's blasphemous. I'm going to try to look. I doubt very highly that I could find this. There was, so I won't, I'm not going to be able to find it, but there was someone who put up a picture of someone holding a picture that was supposed to be Jesus with a Make America Great hat on. So I thought that was blasphemous, but you're right. Yours is even worse. All right. So let's get to some questions. KT asked one early on, so we'll put hers up first. What is the worst question you've ever gotten? Actually, I should come back to, I think that was it right there. That's the word that KT, that is the worst question I've ever been. No, I don't know. I mean, I actually should have put this one up later so I had more time to think about it, because I really don't know what the worst question is.
You've been doing this a long time, right? So but there's come across a lot of stuff.
There's so many bad questions I've been asked. Okay, let me get. I'll tell you what. I'm going to give one. Let me go to this one, and because this will help with it. John is asking question: is the Earth flat? So let me tell you a story how I first came upon flat earthers. Okay, and this will. KT saying, where is it? She goes, I stumped him. Ha! So yes, there you go.
Confounded.
So the first time I heard of flat Earth, this is one of these where I wish I had a camera. Okay, Facebook user is saying no, it's not flat. Facebook user, please go out to apologeticslive.com and follow the instructions for Facebook so we can know your name. So I'm there. We would go on the boardwalk. We had a yearly event where we went down to Jersey Boardwalk. And what we did was we would have a conference. After the conference, we'd go take people, we'd train them to evangelize and take them out on the streets to evangelize. Oh, I should have known better. Facebook user says it's me, Haps. Well, of course, he doesn't know how to use a computer. I'm surprised he's even watching. Haps Addison, man. All right, he's a good brother from Olive Branch Ministries. Does a lot of work. We're trying to help him to get moved out. This is a rabbit trail on a rabbit trail. I was talking to Haps yesterday, and he says, "Hey, I gotta go. Code enforcement just showed up on my door again." So I'm talking to him today, and he says, "Hey, did you want to know what?" No, I want you guys to know what happened with his ministry is he's got a ministry to homeless people. And the city used to bring people to him and he'd take care of them, disciple them. They'd have church every day. They had Bible studies. He'd get them back on their feet, get them out working and help them out. And so what happened is that the city came in and shut him down completely, just walked in, and all his guys, there were like, I think, 25, 30 guys. They let 5 who were dying in hospice, who were dying with cancer, stay in the house. And 20, 25 guys, he had 24 hours to find new housing for them. Just boom, you're shut down, over. And so he's trying to move to Idaho to restart. So what happens? I talked to him today. He says, "Yeah, you want to know why code enforcement came yesterday?" I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "You're never going to guess." I'm like, "Okay, I won't guess. Why?" He goes, "They wanted me to help out some homeless guy. They wanted to get off the streets."
No way.
Yes way. And he's like, "Are you kidding me? You shut me down. You shut our ministry down, and now you want help?" But this is the world. It's like, yeah, we know you're helping, but hey, you're Christian. We got to shut you down. So yeah. All right. So check out Haps Addison and Olive Branch Ministries. They're on Facebook if you're on Facebook. So I'm out on the boardwalk where I'm with this older guy, and I mean, he was much older, and I paired up with him to go teach him how to evangelize. And you know, when you go evangelize, you hear lots of things. It's kind of like we had those Black Hebrew Israelites. I hadn't heard their position. I didn't know where they're at. So, okay, I'm going to listen. I'm going to try to understand them. Now, granted, it would have taken me a long time to understand. We gave that guy like an hour and 40 minutes to finally get to the point, and he never did. And, you know, all of a sudden, vocab comes in to point out where this guy is trying to go. Cause we're like, okay, we've given you all this time to speak. What's the purpose? Right. And so it wasn't really that vocab that we ambushed the guy. Vocab was watching the whole time. It's when we were saying, "Hey, what's the point of this?" that all of a sudden vocab goes, let me get in and show these guys what this guy's about, so that we can know. And we learned a lot about him.
And thankfully he did too, because vocab pointed out that we were actually trying to understand and talk to him and let him have a place to speak and whatever. But he was trying to take advantage of that.
Correct.
We didn't pick up on that.
Because he's saying, "Son, I needed his first time hearing it. I give a lot more grace to try to understand when someone does that." So that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's what I'm doing with this one guy, and he's telling me the earth is flat. And I'm like, I mean, okay, when you're evangelizing, here's the thing. When you're doing apologetics and you hear something that seems crazy to you, your first reaction may be to laugh. Don't do that. I mean, I there's been plenty of times where I did that and I had to learn not to. So this guy's telling me about flat earth, and I'm like, "What, really? You believe the earth is flat?" Like, I thought he was just some prankster playing a joke, and yet he's really believing it. And I'm like, wow, okay. So I'm trying to talk to him and reason with him. And we get into, well, you know, I'm like, "What do you do with people that walked on the moon and, you know, astronauts that we get pictures from space?" He's like, "Oh, it's all made up." Now, I'm talking to this guy for 40 minutes about, give or take. And I'm like, okay, I am learning that there are people that believe in this. Part of me is also going, "Dude, you're whack." I mean, this is just whacked out. And I'm sitting there. And so finally, I'm starting to realize, like, look, this is not a good training for this gentleman who I'm with, that I need to train to evangelize. That's what I'm out here for. So we're not really getting to the gospel because of this. It's more apologetic. So I said, so I wanted to end the conversation. And I said, "Well, look, I don't know that we really have much for us to talk about here. I don't think that we're going to be in agreement. And I think maybe we just, I looked at the gentleman whose name I don't know, and I just said, I think we just need to move on." Right? Now, one of the rules that we give people when we evangelize is you don't butt into a conversation. You wait until you're introduced in. Right. Because if you and I are evangelizing somebody and you're talking to that person and I just butt in
he built the relationship with you. You're the one talking. It shows a disrespect for both you and the other gentleman. So we don't do that. We wait. If you want me to speak, you say, hey, Andrew, do you have anything to add to this? That's how you invite me in.
Mm-hmm.
So I never did that with this guy because we weren't really sharing the gospel. So he took that as an invitation in, because I said, we're going to get going. So here's the thing. This is one of these mic drop moments. The guy looks and he just looks at this gentleman and says, I really don't believe the earth is flat. And I can tell you, for a fact that it's not a government conspiracy that astronauts go into space. And the guy goes, oh yeah? How could you do that? And he goes, because I've been there. And I'm like, why didn't you say that about 20 minutes ago? He's like, I've been waiting to be invited into the conversation. And and I was like, we walked away and I'm like, dude, you're an astronaut? He's like, yeah. I've I forget how many times now he said he's circled the earth.
So the lesson is, next time you're evangelizing and you come up to a flat earther and you're with someone, the first thing you do is go, hey, have you been to space?
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Just make sure. Dude, it was, but like that was when this guy asked me if I thought the earth was round, I thought that was a stupid question. I don't know, and so do I think the earth is a sphere? Yes. And actually when on a show that Matt Slick and I used to do, we had some guys come in, flat earthers, and I jokingly said back then, my theory with flat earthers probably started from some atheist that just wanted to show that Christians would be gullible. And sure enough, that's what happened. Well, okay, not an atheist, an agnostic. The head of the Flat Earth Society, the guy who founded it, is an agnostic. And yet most of the people are professing to be Christians and arguing that the Bible teaches the earth is flat. And so this is the thing. So why do I think it? Because the Bible does say the earth is round, and they go, oh, round, but not sphere. Well, they didn't, they don't have a word to be that precise. Round made the point. But you can test this, a simple test. And a way I know is I remember I was in Florida and I wanted to watch, I was watching the sunset, mm-hmm. and we were sitting there over the, in my room and looking at the balcony, and there was a cloud that got in the way of the sunset. And so, it was a sunrise. And so what I did was I quickly dropped to the floor and got the picture I wanted. In other words, that distance of dropping gave me the extra second for the sun to now where it was just creeping up. That's what I wanted to get, it just creeping up. And that drop gave me another second for that to happen. Why? Because the earth, if the earth was flat, you wouldn't have that. You can go to the some place that has lots of mountains. If the earth was flat, you would see the light come from one side to the other, and it would come up the mountain range, or it would come down the mountain range, but you wouldn't have it go from the mountain range from one side to the other. It would, which is what you end up seeing. You see it creep up. You're not going to have that if the earth is flat. Mm-hmm. So see, John is saying, I laughed at a flat earther on one of my videos and was shocked how many people were very nasty at the comments. I had to block the guy. Flat earth are very convinced. Yeah. And let me tell you why, because I had a guy in my church who was, my old church. And before I left that church, the other elders asked, they said, would you please talk to this guy? And I didn't realize he got into flat earth. And I had met with him a couple times, and I thought he came out of it, and then he got back into it. And part of what it is they watch all these videos thinking to debunk it, thinking it's crazy. But all these guys have, they have a way of explaining everything, and then they go, oh, see, it works. Like, here, look, look at all these experiments that were done first thing in the morning over water, and you could see further than you'd be able to see if the earth was a sphere.
okay, here's the question. Why can you only do that first thing in the morning over water at certain times of the year? Oh, it's because the temperature of the water and the temperature of the air, what happens as the sun rises, and you see that, the heat, the way that it works is it reflects or refracts the light. So you could see a little bit further because it's bouncing off and looking down. So you could see a little bit further. But guess what? 10 minutes later, that's not going to work anymore. It's only first thing in the morning. Why don't they do it at any other time of the day? Because it won't work. That's why.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah. So, no, I don't believe the earth is flat. I think that you can do experiments to show that. There's some great work that's put out. Answers in Genesis has some stuff. And
I'm very confident in the people that have just gone to space.
yeah, I've met 2 people who've been in space. Yeah. So here's the thing. I was actually invited. I don't know if you knew this. I was invited to speak at the Flat Earth Society for one of their conferences. Yes. I have no idea why, but I got an invitation and I submitted my talk. Now, if I would want to be, I've always said I will go anywhere. I'll speak anywhere if they don't restrict what I say.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could have been more deceptive, but I chose not to be. So I submitted my talk title, Why the Earth Must Be a Sphere. I never heard back.
Mm.
I don't know why. Can you imagine?
I can't imagine. I mean, it seems like something, that
yeah, I guess,
right?
you were saying earlier, they're not up to having both sides speak. So yeah,
they flat out didn't want.
KT is saying they flat out didn't want Andrew around. Yeah, it was flat out. You're right. Let's see. So D is saying, can you imagine all the governments agreeing to fool everyone that the earth is flat? Yeah, because that's what's involved. It's not just, they talk about America fooling and all this, but it's not just America. It's every country has to agree with this. Let's see. So,
great comment here by Chris Honholtz. There are flat earthers all around the world.
Yep, all around. There's dad jokes. He's just all right. So yeah. So I mean, I think that there's a lot of people. So how do people get involved with this or any other group like this, where they get so arrogant and prideful you can't communicate with them? It usually starts off, they're trying to look to prove something wrong. Yeah. And these flat earthers, they got tons of videos. I mean, hours and hours and hours of videos. I mean, this dude I knew had a watch that would show you where the earth was. And it wasn't that it just went around, but it would go in and out and around. And that's how they could account for seasons and things like this. So
that's a lot of explaining away to do.
Exactly. And so, this is the issue that you have, is you got to be careful with it. Here's someone saying, any longshoreman will tell you the earth is not flat. I was fishing up in the Bering Straits. You can definitely see the curvature of the earth. They would just say that you can't. That's all. They just say you're lying. What it is you're actually seeing. They think that the around the earth is Antarctica. And so you can't get to the end of the earth because it's all blocked by ice. Now, why would there be ice though? Because the sun would be, and yet the weird thing is they accept all the other planets around. It's spheres. Like, wait, why are they?
But Earth is the one, just the one that's flat.
Yeah.
I have seen where people have done, they've taken like a ball and they've splashed water on the ball and go, see, the earth can't be round because water doesn't stay on a round surface. And then they take a plate and then they pour water on a plate and say, see, this is proof that the earth is flat.
Okay, let's take that ball and enlarge it like by a couple of trillion times. And yeah, it will.
Yeah.
I mean, see, if they
And
want
is
to do
it
that
massive
experiment,
too?
if they want to do that experiment properly, they take the ball, put a drop of water
Mhm.
on the top, and see if it stays there. Right? Yeah. So what happens is a lot of times you get whether it's in flat Earth, Calvinism, anti-Calvinism, whatever. And some of these things, right? Calvinism, we're going to say, okay, this is biblical, but there's people who would say are unbiblical with it as well.
Yes.
When they get in their, you called stage cage, they get angry and upset. Because what you end up seeing is there are people who, what happens is they start getting into something, they study it to refute it, but what ends up happening is they start believing the story. And when that happens, then they can't be reasoned with because they start to identify everything with it. So all that to get back to KT's question. KT, let me just say, when you say, what's the worst question you've ever gotten? I'm thinking about it more, and I have to say, what do you mean by worst? Because I mean, just in seriousness, there's a lot of different ways of answering this. I mean, is it the worst question, like the dumbest thing someone's ever said? Then, I kind of put flat Earth up in that area. Or is it the most blasphemous thing I've ever heard? Right. So there's things like that. So we might have to get back to that question. We'll give her time. All right. John asked another question. Regards to lying, have you ever heard of theocratic warfare and JW religion? Well, I've heard of the Jehovah's Witnesses religion. I'm not sure what theocratic warfare refers
to. Heard of that either.
Yeah. So
if you can explain, explain what it is, maybe we've heard it under a different title. I don't know.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound familiar.
So John, maybe what you could do is give a little bit more of explanation to that for us. Up here, Ted just woke up. Good morning, Ted. Ted says, good morning, brothers from Sydney, Australia. You know why it's morning down there? Because the earth is. Yeah. I remember when Matt and I were doing a show, and it was hilarious because we had a guy from India that was in, and Matt this was so great. Matt's like, wait, so like, how do you explain something? He turns to the guy from India. He goes, can you open that window that's right behind you, the shade? And the guy opens. He goes, the sun is shining. And Matt's looking. He goes, why is it dark in my area? So I don't know the answer to that. Maybe you can ask. You can further give us more explanation. And so, well, Donnie's pestering us. Donnie thinks we didn't get to his question. Just I'm doing them in order, but he has to post this twice. So here's the first one he posted. Andrew, why do all the false teachers get to visit heaven and you haven't? Well, I unlike those guys, I actually will be in heaven. True. They only claim to visit heaven. So why heaven? Well, it's actually a legitimate question. Why do all these false teachers have heavenly experiences? You notice they never have hell-like experiences.
Right. Well, no, there was one.
There's one. There's one or two.
What's his name? Don Piper, I think.
No, he was in heaven.
I thought he did one about hell, though. It was like 90 minutes in hell.
No, it's 90 minutes in heaven, unless he tried to work off his bestseller and, Okay, so John said theocratic warfare, JW is just on. I heard. I don't know much about it. Yeah, sorry. I'm not sure either. There is someone I could ask and try to learn more, see if he knows. But so the reason for heaven is what these false teachers want is credibility.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're looking to get credibility. You don't get credibility if you go to hell. You get credibility if you've gone to heaven, and in heaven, Jesus serves you. Now, you say, no, that doesn't really happen. Well, Duplantis has told the story that one day he had a very busy day, but he realized God sent a cable car to bring him up to heaven. because, and I'm just going to say, this is what he said, is, I think it's blasphemous, but this is the story of the account he's given. He went to heaven, he sees Jesus, and Jesus was depressed and sad. And so Jesse Duplantis
Had to count.
told Jesus he was clearing his calendar for the day to spend time with Jesus. And he was with him all morning. And after lunch, Jesus thanked Jesse Duplantis and said he's feeling much better and sent Jesse back to earth. There's so much wrong with this story that Jesus needs Jesse Duplantis, as Chris Honholz is saying, utter blasphemy.
Yep.
I agree.
Yep.
This is the problem with it. By the way, Chris also said it was Bill Wise 23 minutes in hell. I guess he had to be in hell longer than Don Piper was in heaven. But that is blasphemy. First off, God doesn't need any of us.
Right.
He doesn't need anything. He is self-sufficient. So there is nothing he needs. Okay? So this idea that God needs someone and that he's depressed, blasphemy.
Well, God being triune tells you that he doesn't get depressed because God is self-sufficient, kind of redundant, self-sufficient in and of himself. Okay. All three persons, okay, are the expression of God's love. And so without the triune God, you would not be able to understand love because love needs an object for which to display itself. And so the Father displays love to the Son, who displays love to the Spirit, who displays love to the Father, and they display love to each other. So God cannot be depressed. There's not even a situation in which you could say God can be depressed.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. And not only that, let's just say for the sake of argument, Jesus felt a little down. He's not going to go to a heretic like Jesse Duplantis to cheer him up.
Yeah, he would go to one of the other members of the Trinity.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was even so, I mean, that's the whole thing is so why do they go? They go because they're looking for credibility.
Jason Cave had a comment up here that said self-edification.
Yeah.
Self-edification, false gospel.
True. Yeah. Pastor Darren Steed says also, why is it that the false teacher always sees things in heaven that are contrary to what the Bible says about heaven? Well, that's how you know this is the thing. When I read Don Piper's book, 90 Minutes in Heaven. So I guess he was in heaven longer. I had the number wrong. But, I read it saying, okay, let me, one member of the church asked me to evaluate. And so I said, all right, I'm going to give an honest evaluation. What would I expect to see? If a person went to heaven, what we see from scripture is he would see how sinfully wicked he is in place when he's standing in front of a holy God. That's what we see in Isaiah 6. That's what we see with everybody that stands before God. They see their wickedness and want to hide their face from him because he's so holy in their sinful body.
What did Paul say about heaven when he went up there? Nothing. He said he couldn't even describe it.
He couldn't talk about it. Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah. And so as we think about that, you're going to get someone that's going to come back to earth and see their wickedness and their concern for evangelism. And early in Don's book, it seemed like he was very much concerned with people's souls. And he was in traction with this very painful device on so that he could be able to walk again. For the majority of the book, most of the book, it's like one chapter of what happens in heaven, one chapter or two chapters about what happened when he was revived and the struggle. And the rest of the book, he's concerned with people that have the same devices he had and trying to encourage them, not with the gospel, but with himself as that they could heal.
Think about Burpo, right? Heaven is for real. In that book, right, it's supposed to be this account of this little boy's near-death experience, and he goes to heaven and whatnot. But that book also contains some sort of prophecy in there, because the father, Jesus told the little boy that his father was going to lead an army in the Battle of Armageddon.
Well, and if his father hasn't died, he would say it still could happen. But, you know, one of the things that I would say is this. When we look at it, you have a guy like Malarkey, perfect name.
Right.
The father made it up to
Mhm.
sell books. And even
the family admitted that.
the son that was supposedly had the account said it
Mhm.
wasn't true.
Yep.
He and his mother said it. And so what happened? Nothing. I mean, Lifeway continued selling that book because it was selling. And this is one of the things Justin Peters called out. He was involved with Lifeway, and he said, no, like, this is wrong. Get this off the shelves. And so he ended up departing from Lifeway and the Southern Baptist. But the reality is they knew.
Mm-hmm.
They knew a year before they finally stopped. The only reason they stopped was because a secular news company brought it out. So it blew up. And it was like, oh, now they had to answer for it. So,
but you see so many of these false ministries that claim this, right? Bethel is one of them. There's videos of youth, people who lead the youth in Bethel and kids talking about how the kids are taking trips up to heaven. And you had Bob Jones, not of Bob Jones University, but Bob Jones from the Kansas City Prophets, who was a vile individual, talking about how he would take regular trips up to heaven, and then he would use what his quote unquote gifts in order to seduce women.
yeah. And so this is the thing. Look, this is the stuff that will keep you up at night. Right. I mean, that's just the reality. The false teachers. But if you are having trouble with them, I would suggest getting yourself a good MyPillow. I mean, that's what I would suggest. If you're having trouble, Chris Honholtz, sleeping at night, what you need to do is get yourself a good MyPillow. Go to mypillow.com and use promo code SFE so you know that they know that you heard about them through us, so they continue sponsoring the show. We do thank them for their sponsorship. They did give me a MyPillow 2.0, and it's in the bag right over there, ready for the trip to well, I fly to Chicago, but for the Minneapolis, or however pronounce, I can't pronounce that, but the Reforming Families Conference. So, but I got my MyPillow. If you want to get yours, mypillow.com, use promo code SFE, stands for Striving for Eternity.
You know, you should send a pair of those MyPillow slippers to some of these false teachers and ask them if it's like walking on clouds in heaven.
Oh, there we go. Well, you know, we can ask Chris Honholtz, because I actually did get a pair from MyPillow, and I gave them to Chris, and I had to go buy my own. So, okay, Chris, that's it. Ban Chris, boot him. He said, I'll be honest, it didn't work for me, but I'm rough on pillows. No, you're just rough on everyone, not just your pillows, Chris. It's not just the pillow that you're rough on. All right, let's. So, okay, he says about the slippers. They are indeed quite comfy slippers. I got mine on right now, and these are not the fluffy ones he has. These are, you know, regular, but the cushion on this is great. I mean, these are like, Chris is hard on his pillows. I'm hard on slippers. I don't know why I destroy them, but I used to get the cheap ones, $10, $15 ones at Costco, and it wouldn't even last 6 months. Mm-hmm. I'd get a winter every year. I'd get a winter one and a summer one every year. But I now have winter and summer MyPillow slippers, and they're still going good. So Jason says, nice segue, AR. Hey, I got to be good with something. I'm do those spiritual transition games. So we got a bunch of questions that came in. Let's see if we can get through these quickly. This is a longer one, and some of which I don't know if we'll get into, but actually I'll let you read this one so that I can get a sip of clear my throat.
Yeah, so Chris Cutler on Facebook, he asks, it seems many of the post-Reconstruction theonomic types arrive at the conclusion from holding a Thomistic, Thomas Aquinas, view of God's law, the threefold. There's been lots to talk about theology being muddied by Aquinas's influence. I would agree. But I find my Reformed brothers do not wish to look into this because it will do violence to the confessions. So my question is, do you believe the threefold division of the law comes from Thomas Aquinas?
Now, that's an interesting question. So I can say that my first, I guess, introduction to threefold law was the Westminster Confession and not Aquinas. If it's found with Thomas Aquinas, I don't think it makes any difference to me, because I don't believe in the threefold law anyway. I don't think you can divide the 613 commandments into civil, ceremonial, moral laws. People try, and I've said, if maybe it's out there, if someone has it, send it to me. But I don't know of anyone that's taken all 613 laws and shown how they divide, because they don't divide so easily, as people say, because I don't think it is that division. I think that in my way of, I do believe in a threefold division, but not the way that the Westminster Confession has it. So the way that I view the law is, I believe that there is a law that is universal to all people, all times, everywhere in the world. Jewish, Gentile, believing, unbelieving. You should not lie. You should not steal. These are things that I think are universal laws. Everyone. They're transcendent laws. I think someone else on this show that came in referred to it as transcendent laws. Actually, no, I think it was on my Rap Report podcast, and it hasn't aired yet. That was, I think this came into discussion when we got the Dead Man Walking podcast, along with Conversations with a Calvinist podcast and the Rap Report podcast, all got together, and we talked about. Keith was talking from Conversation with a Calvinist, was talking about transcendent laws. It's what I refer to as universal laws. And then I believe there were laws for the nation of Israel, and there were laws for the church. And so now, as a dispensationalist, I would say that there would be different laws that could be for specific people, specific times. But what we end up seeing is, I wouldn't see that we're responsible to keep that which was meant for the nation of Israel. We're not Israel. Okay. I'm Israel, but that's different. So I mean, that would be my position. And that's why some people would say I'm not Reformed in the proper use of the term. I wouldn't be, because I don't hold to confessional statements like that. So, but Drew, I don't know if you may disagree.
Well, I mean, my first introduction
to a guy, you're a 1689.
Yeah, so my first introduction to the divisions was through Vodi Bakum. That was the first place I actually heard them. And so when I heard Vodi teach on that, I was like, oh, well, then that must be true, of course, because Vodi's saying it, and you never want to be on the wrong side of Vodi, right?
Well, I can tell you one thing. I would never want to roll with Vodi doing jiu-jitsu, because dude's a big, strong dude. And, he's got to be I'm thinking he's got to be like a purple belt by now. But yeah. Anyway.
And so, I've never looked too far into it as where the divisions originally came from, whether it was from Aquinas or anything like that. But there are some laws, when I was listening to you talk about them, I was going, yeah, I would believe that there were laws for Israel, the holiness code. But we also look at some of the laws, and we see there are ceremonial laws, so laws that would be specific for worship. And there are laws that, because of Christ's fulfillment as the final sacrifice, well, we don't hold to those laws anymore because they're fulfilled in Christ.
Yeah.
And so, but I would say it is hard to kind of find where is the division with some of the laws, because maybe you have a law that is a moral law, but it's also it can also be a holiness code law, or it may bleed into a ceremonial law.
Well, see, some may be for both. You may have may have a command that's given to Israel that is also given to the church.
Yeah, and so what we also see,
and yet still not be universal to all people.
right? Yeah, and so what we also see, especially being 1689, is kind of taking the general equity of the law, right? So the general value of the law, and moving that over. So it would be something like the we don't have houses where we go sit on our roofs anymore, right? Well, I mean, I guess in Florida or in California you probably do, but in Israel, people would go at the end of the day and they would sit on their roof because it was cooler. Well, you had to have a parapet along your roof to protect people. Well, we would move that over today and say, well, since we don't go on our roof, but we do have pools in our backyard, and we have to have a fence around the pool in order to protect people, because if someone were to fall in my pool and drown, I'm responsible, right? So that's just it's the general equity of the law.
Yeah. So, hey, look, our friend, he has a question about Leviticus 29. But well, we've already know that you are an admitted liar who is a racist and a cheat. As you go watch the beginning of this show, well, you and your buddy who steal our material and want to use it without citation. So yeah, we'll just keep taking down all of the videos you want to put up illegally of ours and try to take out the citation because you're a bunch of cowards and cheats. So yeah. Hey, this is cool. Lorraine, hello from Philippines. We're planning a return trip to the Philippines. We'll be there for it looks like next April. So looking forward to hanging out, hopefully.
You're going to do another debate with what's his name?
R.A. Fuentes.
R.A. Fuentes.
I'm actually thinking of doing that actually in person. I bet he won't do it. That's going to be my guess. So, oh, look, so here's the question that I think was asked is, when does Chris Honhold start working for Striving Fraternity as our chief blogger? Look at this. He put it up there. First week of February, 2024.
There you go.
There we go. That would be it. We look forward to Chris being our chief blogger. All right.
That's what you want, because when Chris writes something, you want to read it.
Yeah, I know. And besides, his Twitters are too long now that he can now that he doesn't need to. All right, so let's knock off some more of these questions. All right. KT says, did the female singers in the Old Testament sing in the temple? What part of the temple did the singers sing in? I have no idea. First off, I don't even know that there were female singers. I can't think.
Andrew, confounded.
Yeah. Yeah. Unlike the way that the Black Hebrew Israelites claim that I'm confounded. This is where I actually don't know. So I guess, KT, I'll give you a homework assignment for me. If you could find where it mentions the female singers, because I'm not even familiar with that. But where would they sing within the temple? That's interesting, because I guess part of the question is, like, if you go to the temple today, as we did, we went to Temple Mount, and you could see there's a division for the women and the men. And so, and part of their prayers are singing. So it becomes the question of who are the singers? I mean, there's a lot that are singing psalms, which are, right from scripture. And so that becomes a thing of, what defines a singer? Was it a service? Now, in the synagogue, I can understand you have a cantor who does the singing or leads the singing, and that would be a male position in the synagogue. So that's something. I don't know that. I don't know the answer. Chris Honhold says that what was that about telling lies, Andrew? I'm not telling lies. It's prophecy. Because I will annoy Chris endlessly if he doesn't come and take over our blogging and help out. I'll just, all right. So KT, she edited the question earlier. What's the craziest question you've ever gotten? I don't know what the craziest one was. I mean, a flat Earth. Some of the these Black Hebrew, or let's not call them Black Hebrew. They don't want to be Black Hebrew Israelites. Let's call them what they are: racist, fake Hebrew Israelites, because that would be what they are. Mm-hmm. The racist fake Israelites, where they claim that the Bible gives a prophecy that they are going to be basically that they're the Israelites because of a prophecy they claim is a prophecy to them, but they have to twist the scriptures to make it work. Hence the reason they say you got to read the Bible by here a little, there a little, because
precept upon precept. Yeah.
Well, line upon line, precept upon precept, then here a little, there a little. The only one they do is the here a little, there a little. They don't do line upon line. They don't do precept upon precept. They just go pick from here, from here, shove it together and make sense. Yep. The reality is, if they actually read that in context in Isaiah, it's a condemnation on those who pick a little from here and pick a little from there.
Yep.
Like they didn't even read the context to see that God's judging that.
Yep.
So,
or even I heard one where they were going to Jeremiah talking about this is a future prophecy about Israel, and they're pulling it from Jeremiah, and I'm going, have you ever heard of the Babylonian captivity that Daniel references, and he's referencing Jeremiah?
Yeah. Oh, Chris is now saying prophecy from a cessationist. It really is the end of days. Look, it's a highly educated guess. You forget, Chris. I put cameras in your house. Okay, so I got to tell that story. I wish I knew what episode it was. I should go back, binge on all his episodes, figure out, and grab the audio from that, because
it was a Christmas around Christmas time a year or two ago.
So we should go look for that. Okay, folks, here's a challenge. Anyone that can go to Voice of Reason Radio and find the episode where Chris told this, where this happened. But this was great. Chris, before he'll always, before they record, ask for prayer. Hey, Richard and I are about to record tonight. Voice of Reason Radio, be praying for us. And so what ended up happening was I sat there and when I saw it, they were already recording. Now, mind you, they're not recording like this where people can see. It's just Chris and Richard recording Voice of Reason Radio. No, you don't know what's being said until they go out. Well, Chris starts the show saying that he put out there for folks that, hey, we're going to be, I posted that we're going to be recording. And then Chris said, Andrew Rappaport probably already knows this because he put cameras in my house, because he probably put cameras in my house. Well, 20 minutes later, Chris bursts out laughing. Why? And like Richard was trying to make a point, and all of a sudden so Chris had to explain. I'm sorry, Richard. I just saw Andrew responded to my request for prayer, and his response was, "Yes, Chris, I know that because I installed a camera over your shoulder." So that was great. So KT is saying, there were female singers. I don't know if they sang in the temple or synagogue. Was maybe one female musician in Chronicles listed with males? I just don't know. I mean, I don't know it offhand. All right, Chris Honholz is saying, let's be clear. Since Andrew keeps wanting to claim otherwise, Chris is a schlub with a podcast who occasionally writes stuff and will still be that when he retires from law enforcement. No change. Yeah, that's right. You're just going to be a schlub that hopefully is going to be, writing for us. Okay. So look at this. Our racist is calling me a liar. Liars.
Wait. But they believe in a doctrine that says it's okay
to lie. So the racist fake Israelite is saying, liars, we do. And it's history, archaeological, and prophecy. Prophecy, dude, if you twist the scripture, you have to say that the only word you take literal is the word ship. You have to take Egypt as figuratives. They sell themselves as slaves as figurative. There's no buyers at figurative. And there's nothing to explain why ship should be literal then.
Right.
When we know historically there was a literal time that real Israelites, not fake ones like you, had actually left the land of Israel in both the Assyrian and Babylonian captivity, and they went to where? Oh, Egypt, like literal Egypt, like the actual place, just like it says. And what happened? Oh, they went, the quickest way to go is how? By ship. And when they have no jobs, what would they do? They would sell themselves as slaves because no one would buy them so that they would have a way of caring for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not talk about liars when you make up history and make up prophecy.
Yep.
You got nothing. I mean, the one that I love is they got a sign, and I could probably dig it up, a signpost where there's a name of the town called, and the free men of Israel, of Israelites is the name of the town. They talk about slavery and they're like, see, this is proof that it's from the slaves. It's the name of the town. It's not a description of the town. I mean, but that's what they have to resort to. Chris is saying he doesn't even remember that episode it was. Someone please find that. Oh, but I lie about Deuteronomy 28. I lie. Let's read Deuteronomy 28. Let's get it straight so we see if I lie. Here's what it says. The Lord will bring you back to Egypt in ships by the way about which I spoke to you. You will never see it again. And there you will offer yourselves for sale to your enemies as male and female slaves, but there will be no buyers. Okay, let's see. What did I lie about? I said that they went back to Egypt, just like this says, in ships, just like this says, that they didn't have anyone they sold themselves as slaves, just as it says, and there were no buyers, just as it says.
Come on, Andrew, that's the Atlantic slave trade.
Yeah, that's right. That's the Atlantic slave trade because the word ship is used. And it's the only place. There's only one place ever where there were slaves that were sent by ship.
That's archaeologically proven.
Yeah. Well, if we want to deal with facts to this fake Israelite, who did the kidnapping of those black slaves? Oh, that's right. Black Africans. Yeah. Your own people kidnapped you and sold you as slaves. So you're saying the Israelites sold Israelites as slaves. And the thing I always find amazing is that, they knew who were the slaves because they only sent like Judah here to Americas is the claim that some make. So it's like, I think it's Dan that's in Jamaica, I forget which, but it's like, oh yeah, the slavers were really concerned with keeping people together. And I guess if you kidnap just the Israelites so that, someone who is a brother or sister wasn't really an Israelite, like, okay. So okay, he's saying the verse says, you shall be sold.
But you just read it.
I'll read it again. It says, and there you will offer yourselves for sale. Now he's going to go, oh, it's not King James. Okay, let's read it in the King James because they're, the racists are to a book and don't know the Hebrew. So they say that, so here's what the King James says. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt with ships. By the way, I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. No man shall buy you. That means they sold themselves to their enemy because nobody bought them. There was no sale if they didn't get bought. It was a giveaway. So no matter how you look at it, I'm not the one lying there, buddy boy. Sorry, dude. All right. So let's get into spiritual warfare one first before Melissa's, because Melissa's is going to take a bit. All right. Sarah's asking, what is a healthy approach to deciphering what is spiritual warfare, what is and isn't spiritual warfare? Okay, so this is a good question because much of what's called spiritual warfare is not. So okay, let's start with what's not good. What's not good way of doing it is that when you see people that are saying, okay, if you're have an issue with drinking and you're drunk, that that's a spiritual warfare of drunkenness.
Yeah. You have the generational curse of
curses and things. Yeah. So when you're blaming, when you're taking individual sin and trying to blame that on a demon or something like that, that's not spiritual warfare. Okay. That is basically avoiding accountability, right? Most people want to blame the devil. So what do you have with that? Well, they don't want to take responsibility for their sin. Someone made them do it? No, it was their own flesh that did that. Oh, hey, what's that book that you got there?
This is a good book.
Yeah, it is a good book on the subject. Yeah.
And so Sarah is actually
the title, because not everyone on the podcast can read the title that you're showing. What?
Yeah. Well, let me just so I know Sarah. She's family. And so I should give this book to her. The book is by our friend Jim Osman, and it is Truth or Territory: A Biblical Approach to Spiritual Warfare.
And if you want to get a copy of that book, you can get it at strivingfraternity.org in our store. We sell it as well, and you'll get it shipped through by Amazon.
And if you have AGTV, there is a small study that Jim does through the book as well.
Oh, look at this. Oh, we're scared.
Yeah.
The fake Israelites say that we're scared to read Leviticus. Oh, I'm so scared. Yeah. I don't think so.
So let's get back to a real question. So we have what isn't spiritual warfare. What would be an actual case of spiritual warfare going on?
Well, I think when you do have cases where you'd have demonic activity that could occur, and when you have demonic activity, you're looking at the fact that there's going to be something that is either someone that's demon possessed that could be you could be dealing with. I've dealt with that on the streets. You could have in your own life where there's, it could be things that are happening in your life. You think of Job and everything that happened to him. That was spiritual warfare, though he didn't know it. But you notice he didn't credit it to be like, oh, it's the devil doing this, the devil doing that. What you end up seeing is you see the fact that there is a case where Job is seeing that this is happening and does not have any idea that what is going on behind the scenes. Kind of like, for people in the chat that don't realize we have some demons back there. Look, here's a fake Israelite saying this live stream is demonic and you guys don't even know the Bible at all. That's right, because we read it in context and don't know how to twist it like you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you probably don't always know the spiritual warfare that's going on around you, but it's good to identify what's not spiritual warfare. I mean, we shouldn't be trying to push people to say, we should be blaming the demons for everything.
Right. And I've seen it where everything that good that happens is God and everything bad that happens is Satan. Well, it's not always the case because the Lord can bring discipline upon you. So sometimes you may experience something and it's actually a discipline of the Lord to bring you back in line. And it's not of Satan.
And most of the time, it's really us who sinned, and we just don't like the consequences.
Right.
So
So
that's
I
good.
would say anything spiritual warfare, something that's trying to pull you away from Christ.
Yeah. But we may not see it all.
Right.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
We may not see that, what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we have another question here from Melissa. Said this will take a little bit of time. Did you guys hear about the FBI sending informants into Catholic churches to spy on them? Now, I disagree with Catholicism, but I believe that much more of the church denominations will be targeted in the future. We were talking about this earlier. And so, yeah, they're bringing out the Catholics now, but because the Catholics are the soft targets, and they'll go for the harder targets later.
Mhm.
But when we talked about Christian nationalism, this was the reason I'm against using the term, because this is the thing. You go back to my Rap Report podcast. If you search the Rap Report for I think it's maybe Christian terrorists or domestic terrorists, you'll see we did a very long show, very important show, where I read through what the Biden administration calls a domestic terrorist. And it's basically anybody who thinks that if you thought there was anything wrong with the 2022 presidential election, you're a domestic terrorist. If you want to keep your privacy private and you move to you move off a platform that is spying on you to one where it's encrypted, that you're a domestic terrorist.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't believe the vaccines were working, you're a domestic terrorist. I guess, by the way, the CDC is a domestic terrorist because they just recently came out and admitted that you can get vaccinated and still get and pass on COVID. So, yeah, it's just those of us that said it during the election, we're the domestic terrorists.
Yep.
Look, the reality is that they're targeting Christians to get rid of a whole voting bloc. This is no different than what happened in Nazi Germany. Get rid of all the Jewish people that had the money, take their money, and then you're getting rid of the voting bloc, and now you just got to keep blaming them for everything that goes wrong. Well, Christian, we're going to be the ones in the gulags. You don't believe it? Go look at January 6th. People who, the people who actually, the government went into people, asked for all their video evidence, and then it disappeared. All the evidence that proves they're innocent. They're not allowed to have evidence to support their claims. They're not allowed to, cross-examine officers that were walking them around.
Tucker showed that video, one of the videos that were supposedly lost.
Yeah. So, this is the reality. I mean, this is just where we're at.
I mean, yeah, and to Melissa's, I think that was Melissa's question. It wouldn't surprise me when you saw what happened with James Coates in Canada. Doesn't surprise me at all.
So, all right. So let's. Before the show ends, let me deal with these fake Israelites. They say I can't read Leviticus 25, 39 to 46. So let's read it. If your countryman of yours becomes so poor with regards to you that he sells himself to you, you shall not subject him to the slave's service. He shall be with you as a hired man, as if he was a sojourner. So shall he shall serve you until the year of Jubilee. He shall then go out from you, he and his sons with him, and shall go back to his family, and shall return to the property of his forefathers. For they are my servants whom I brought out of the land of Egypt. They will not be sold in a slave sale. You shall not rule over him with severity, but to revere your God. As your male servants, how far do they want me to go down here? 46. Okay. As for your male and female slaves from whom you have, you may acquire male and female slaves from the pagan nations that are around you. Then too, it is out of the sons of the sojourners who live as aliens among you, you shall gain acquisition, and out of their families who are with you, whom you have produced in your land, they also may become your possession. You may even bequeath them to your sons after you to receive a possession. You can use them as permanent slaves, but in respect to your countrymen, the sons of Israel, you will not rule. You shall not rule with severity one over one another.
So I'm guessing he's
Hold on.
using this to say this is why they're going to own slaves.
Yeah. So, well, here's the thing. I just read it, so I guess I'm not so scared of them. Yeah, I'm not scared of scripture. So what is this talking about? Well, if they actually knew the Bible instead of their racist doctrines, they would know who that's speaking of. It's speaking of actual Israelites that lived in the land of Israel, not Africa, and had slaves that were their own countrymen when they did practice a year of Jubilee. And that year of Jubilee was long earlier, because that year of Jubilee, we end up seeing that they didn't keep that 7-year Sabbath cycle. And that's why they had 70 sevens. They skipped it, and they skipped the Jubilee. And that's why they were in Babylonian captivity for 7 years. That's what Bible says, Jeremiah. And so the reality is that it's speaking of Israelites. And you go, well, what about these pagans that were slaves? Yeah, they're in there too, as far back as Joshua, soon as they came into the promised land.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so let's do this. So we got a character backstage who, it's usually fun to keep him backstage just to see the facial expressions, because they're so good. And we just missed one with his tongue
You
out.
did. You totally did. My tongue was out.
You in quicker. Chris Huff of Matter of Theology, welcome. I'm sure you probably have a lot you want to say about all the things we answered.
I actually haven't been able to tune in, so you're gonna have to catch me up. You could do rapid fire if you want to. That could be kind of fun.
Oh, we dealt with a lot of things.
Yeah, he's been slacking, man. Who knows what
he has?
Evidently,
probably been watching the Braves or something.
No, definitely not. Although I think they lost today. So, but no, not today.
Let me do this for the fake Israelites that are there, and because the reality is, as we started the show, Drew, you talked about, I don't think you mentioned it here, but you did tell me the language that these fake Israelites have on their shows, the foul language that Scripture condemns, the judgmentalism, the pride. This is the stuff that you end up seeing is not biblical. Scripture condemns the behavior they have, and so, this is the thing. They need the gospel, because these guys, as they said, they do not believe that Jesus is God.
Right.
And this is not me saying. Scripture says if you don't accept Jesus for who he is as Lord, you are going to spend eternity in a lake of fire.
Right.
Every single one of us has sinned. Every one of the three of us here, every one of the people that are commenting, everyone that's watching and listening, all of us have broken God's law. We lie, we steal, we break his law. We deserve eternity in a lake of fire.
Yep.
I mean, even Drew here, he over his head right there is a picture he stole from his mother's house. He was telling me earlier. He stole that from his mother.
He's talking about that, Chris. The We Preach Christ.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That I got at Shepherd's Conference.
ShepCon, yep.
He claims he got it.
I was there.
It was in his mother's house, but he got it I think he got it as a gift for his mother. And then said, I want it back. And his mother said, I don't have it. And then produced it. So, I mean,
you're just making up stuff like Deuteronomy.
I might be lying. I could be wrong, but I might be lying there. And so what we see is that we all lie and steal. And the fact is, we cannot save ourselves. Our good works won't save us for a very simple reason. We don't have any. Nothing that we do is good compared to what God did for us in dying on the cross. And so we can't sit there and say, oh, but I did these good works or I'm a good person. No, every one of us is a criminal in God's sight and deserve his judgment.
Amen.
And if you don't believe Jesus is God, then he couldn't have paid an eternal fine for you because he's not an eternal being.
Right.
If he's just a temporal being, he's a man like any other man, even a prophet, then he can't pay an eternal fine.
No.
And then his death is meaningless for your salvation. And you're dead in your sins if he's not God. And so if you're believing that, you need to turn. That's what repentance means. Turn from that thinking. Stop believing Jesus is just a man. Stop thinking he's not God and turn and trust the God and Savior, Jesus Christ, who paid an eternal debt when he died on the cross for your sin. Because without that, you have no hope for heaven.
Amen.
You can sit there and dream all day long about white slaves that you're going to have. But the reality is, you're going to end up in a pit of fire. And I don't want that for you. As much as you hate me, call me a devil, all the things, all the name calling you want to do. The difference between you and I, for the fake Israelites, the difference between you and I is that I care where you spend eternity and you care about yourself. The Bible condemns that behavior on your part. And that's one of the sins of pride that you'll be judged for. And that's why I plead with you. You're caught up in occultic thinking where you're in the echo chamber, no different than the flat earthers. We've just heard it over and over and over again. And it makes a lot of sense because, look, they pull these things together and it sounds like it's really got a lot there because look at how much evidence there's there. Well, the flat earthers make the same exact arguments. And they're just as quacky. And so the fact is, you got to deal with what the truth is. If Jesus isn't God, you're dead in your sin. You have no hope. You have no way of payment for your sin. And you will spend eternity in a lake of fire. And denying there's a lake of fire doesn't do you any good. Because that's like saying you deny gravity walking off the Empire State Building. You're going to crash and burn because the law of gravity will take effect just as the law of God will take effect. And so don't just deny it and walk away and call us devils just because of the color of our skin. The fact is that it doesn't have anything to do with color of skin. It has to do with what Jesus did. So let's bring in the man himself, the one and only, Kofi Ubuntu. How are you, sir?
What's up, Kof?
Oh, you're muted.
Muted.
You got to unmute yourself because I can't.
There we go. That helps. There we go. Yeah. How we doing, guys?
What's up, brother?
Good, Kofi.
Oh, good to see you all.
So, have you been watching any comments you want to make in the 20 minutes we got left?
Yep. I was in and out. My wife got off her shift at the hospital early. That's why I'm able to come on. So that was great. But I was listening in my earbuds, and I mean, again, this is really the heart of the issue with that whole movement and its, viewpoints that they put out. Ultimately, it's a very temporal message. It's a very here and now focused message. It has no understanding of the peril that the soul is in without Christ, the necessity of the atonement, the necessity of the Spirit's regenerating work. Ultimately, it's a message that appeals to the carnal flesh rather than those things which I would say the Spirit of God appeals to, and those things that the Spirit of God makes valuable to the believer. And it's tragic because you'll see believers at times who will kind of parrot one or a few of the ideas of Hebrew Israelism, especially in the Black community. And it's sad because you hear that from people who otherwise would say they understand the gospel, and it becomes very apparent that no, you don't. I don't think you quite understand the importance of the gospel message. And I don't know if they're still listening or not, but I would plead earnestly with them. Your soul is in peril. Like, this is not just a philosophical difference that we have when it comes to these issues. Like, you are flirting with an eternity away, and not even away from the presence of God, because the Bible makes it clear that the Lord is the one who punishes even in hell.
Yep.
But away from the blessing of God's presence, the joy of God's presence, knowing only his wrath for eternity, you are messing with that. And I would honestly plead with them, repent while you still have time.
Well, I think something, Kofi, that stands out as well to me, and I have gone back and started listening to last week and when they were on. But I mean, you know, the whole concept of having white slaves, you know, and especially if they want to go back to Leviticus and Deuteronomy, it's just like, I mean, that goes completely against Deuteronomy 16. You shall not distort justice. You shall not be partial. Period. Deuteronomy, Leviticus, you shall do no, Leviticus 19, you shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial. You know, saying you're going to own someone because of the melanin or lack of melanin in their skin, which, by the way, no one has any control over. It reeks of pride. Not only did they deny Christ, but you examine the fruit. I think of Matthew 7. You look at the fruit of what they're doing, how they twist scripture big time, the things that they say and the way that they say them, the words that they use, it all matters. So, you know, when it comes to people like that, you examine the fruit and you do exactly, Kofi, what you just did, and Andrew, what you just said, is you plead with them to repent, you give them the gospel, and you continue to give them the gospel.
That's right.
There's no temporal fix to what they're trying to do. It's an eternal issue, and that's clearly
and that's
shown.
where our focus is, right? We're striving for eternity, right? We're not trying to earn eternity, but we're fixated on that which is eternal as believers. We want to be ready. You know, that's why, you know, our tagline at Striving for Eternity is, you know, equipping for eternity. We want people to be ready to be there and to be, you know, and so we're going to reach out to people like this and say, like, the biggest need they have is the gospel. Not white slaves. And if they read the Old Testament, if they read Leviticus, they'd realize the slave trade that they're trying to argue for would be illegal in Israel. You know? I mean, this is, you know, they're not arguing for a slaves where they're freed. I mean, this is, it's, you know, it was a thing where they would be against the white slave owners that were in this country, especially the brutal ones. Not everyone was brutal, but many were. And yet, what is it they want to be those brutal tyrants? Right? We want them to have eternal life. We want them to turn from their sin, turn to Christ. This is the thing. Christians are being attacked. We talked about this in the last question. What is it that when you look at the transgenders and everyone wants to attack Christians? Okay, what is it that a Muslim would want to do with a transgender or homosexual? Throw them off a building and stone them. What does a Christian want to do? Share the gospel. We want them to be saved. They want them to be dead, and we're supposedly the meanies.
There was a pastor, Anthony Wood, Tony Wood. He's a pastor of Mission Bible Church in Southern California. Dear brother, he wrote Defining Deception with Costi Hinn, but he recently preached a sermon about persecution. And one of the things that he talked about in there was, you know, that when the persecution comes, when it comes, and it is coming. I mean, just look at what happened in Nashville. You know, for example, I just saw today that authorities are finally planning on releasing that manifesto.
No, they haven't decided. They're I'm going to
talking about it again.
They're talking about it, but I'll tell you what's going to happen. You know why they're talking about it? They're figuring out what to redact.
Exactly. No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, but when you look at what happens, it's just like Tony Wood said, and Tony's a dear friend and brother, but he said, you know, they're not going to come for Ben Shapiro. They're not going to come for people standing there with his little beanie on or anything like that. Who they're going to come for? They're going to come for the believers. They're going to come for the truth. And we need to prepare ourselves. Like, understand that when Jesus's words in John 15, if they hated me, they will hate you. Like, those are very real words. And we are starting to see and will continue to see the fruit of that. And you've got to be prepared. You got to be prepared to give defense for the hope that you have. You've got to make up your mind. Are you going to count the cost of what it means to follow Christ and confess Christ as Lord in everything you think, say, and do?
Yeah. My question for them would be, how do they obtain salvation, right? Because they don't believe Christ is God.
Right.
But they also, I believe these gentlemen specifically would call themselves true Christians. I think they said that on their own program, that they are the true Christians. Okay, but then how do you define that? And what does that mean? And how do you obtain salvation under that worldview?
Well, first you'd have to say, what is salvation? I mean, it doesn't seem like they're looking for eternal life, right? So there's that difference. And these would be fair questions to ask them.
Yeah.
if they'd come on and have honest conversation, but then again,
they can
So-
lie to us. So
oh, this is funny. Here, Ash is saying fair use. Actually, no, Ash, it's not fair use when you play it without comment, like you did. That's why I gave you the copyright strike. It's not fair use when you try to take out the word striving for eternity and the website. That's not fair use when you try to take out the citation for your own thing and then just put it up there. And yes, I already know, go back to the beginning, I already caught that you did it again. You just made it unlisted. That's okay. I know people that work at Google. We're working on it, and we'll have that taken down too. And 3 strikes, dude, your channel's going down. So, if you want to take them down, you better take them down now. But I will be able to find it even if you keep it unlisted, because we already put in a request, and they don't want to have to deal with lawyers. I know. So stealing our material is still stealing, which is a sin. Just saying. Steve Dew is saying they're looking for eternal slaves. Maybe that's what it is. So let's. I'm going to wrap up, because unlike you guys, I gotta leave to catch a flight in New York. I gotta leave at 2 a.m, which is a couple hours from now.
Yep.
So I will be at the Michiana Reforming Families Conference this weekend. So if you're in the Michiana, Indiana area, that will be held at, let's see, it is, I'm trying to remember the name of the church. I just drew a blank. Let's see, I think it was Berean Reformed Baptist Church. So that is this weekend.
I like the name of that.
Chris Honnold says you never sleep.
He used to not sleep. He's gotten better with that.
I've gotten better. I love my wife very much, and therefore she's wanted me to sleep. I've lost. I'm now officially no longer overweight. I weighed in this morning at 172. So that's the I haven't been there in 20 years because I love my wife more than food. And those who are regular listeners, that I have problems with eating. Anyone that's been with me knows.
172?
I'm 172.
I weigh more than that, and I'm smaller than you. Like, I'm in height.
Yeah. I'm 5'11" now, maybe shrinking to 5'10", but yeah. Next weekend, will all of us be at the Cruciform Conference next weekend?
Remember, I told you
oh, that's right. You couldn't
pull out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to pull out. So
I didn't know you pulled out too.
Oh, the shame of it.
I know.
Shame
I
of
know.
this.
Stuff happens.
You heathens. Yeah. So, well, okay. I guess only I will be at Cruciform. I hope it's not going to be another ways Cruciforms where I show up and I start taking everyone else's slots, because when we're dealing with new Puritanism, I won't have as much. But that's the topic: is New Puritanism. I'll be dealing with the Puritans' view of evangelism. If you're in the Philadelphia Bucks County area, May 13th, I'll be doing a men's conference at Langhorne Presbyterian Church. Yes, a Presbyterian church, and I'll be speaking. Then
are you preaching on baptism?
I'm going to be doing an overview of the life of Abraham.
Oh, okay.
And
I was just thinking like the flat earthers that invited you to speak.
No, it'll be good. I will be.
Andrew, that reminds me of when MacArthur tells the story about when he was invited to come speak on charismatic stuff. And it was actually for people who believed in speaking in tongues and everything else. And he got about a quarter of a way through his message, and somebody came on the stage to escort him off. He's like, wait, I'm not done.
If I heard that story, I don't remember it, but that's good.
Yeah.
June 16th, if you're in Redwood City, I'll be doing a seminar at Grace Bible Church in Redwood City. Great church up there. Pastor Steve Converse. Love that guy. And then we're going to be doing an evangelism training in Indianapolis. Hearts for the Lost and Striving for Eternity going to get together. We'll be doing that July 7th through the 9th or 7th and 8th.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's something to look forward to. And so those are some trips I got coming up. I hope to see some of you guys there. Obviously, I won't be seeing these guys at some of those events, but all right.
When is the one in Indy?
Indy is July. I just shut it down. So July, what did I say, 5 to 7, or was it 7 to July 7th and 8th?
I may be in Indy real quick at the end of next month for a book signing for Jack Carr, Navy SEAL. He's releasing his book, his next book in that series. And he's doing a book signing at a library up there. So
okay,
here you go, Darren. Or
Darren.
Darren
says, "Dude, you're coming to Indianapolis." So I'll just tell you, Chris, when you get there, I'm gonna tell you, there's a place that Brian Nine introduced me to, and I introduced Brian to something, and it's changed his view. There's a place called 45 Degrees.
Okay,
it's a sushi place, really good sushi.
See, I'm not a sushi guy. I had sushi 2014, got real bad food poisoning, and
get over that and get the good stuff. It's because you went somewhere cheap.
What was the place we ate at last year or the year before that for Cruciform?
It was
we were all there.
It was some Asian cuisine. It was good.
Well, here's the thing. There's a place, 45 Degrees. They have really good sushi. What Brian never had was fresh wasabi. So I introduced him to fresh wasabi, and that makes all the difference, because you don't sit there and dip it in soy sauce and you don't get the burn. You put a little bit of fresh wasabi on, it brings out all the flavors. So we're definitely going to hit that up, I'm sure, because so Darren, if you want to join us, you better be there.
Put that comment up about burgers and fries. I'm with Darren on that one. Darren, when I get there, bro.
Now we're talking.
Darren says, bro, this is why you should stick with me. I'll take you some burgers and fries. And that's what he took me when I was with him. So, so those are some events. Let me just give a shout out. If you guys would consider supporting us, just go to strivingtourney.org/support. Interesting statistics that I looked up last year compared to the year before. So we had our book sales and our donations went down by 25%, while our expenses went up by 25%. And most of it, what it is, people I know are struggling. And we go to churches that can't afford to have us. We go to smaller churches where, unlike all the big ministries, we don't go to where the money is and all the people are. And so we need your help to get to churches that need our help, where they need discipleship, they need training, they want to have that conference experience in their church to help their church grow. That's what we look to do. You can help us do that. I just booked flights. I just booked 7 flights for different events that I got coming up. I used to be able to find flights $250, $300. I can't find anything under $600 or $700 anymore.
Yeah.
So it's tripled. The expenses for hotels have tripled. And so it's really causing us to have to now evaluate. When people ask us to speak, we have to think. We used to just say yes. Now we have to look at the money in the bank and say, can we afford to go? Because a lot of the churches can't afford it. Yeah. And so if you want to help us out, go to strivingtourney.org/support. That'd be a great help to us. If you found value in anything that we're doing here for you, then maybe you could, if you find value, then help us out. It's a value for value type of thing. And if you're getting value from what we're doing it for you. But, it helps us to keep doing these things when we're supported. So, and I can say this as someone that my main income, my main way of making money does not come through ministry. So I'm not saying that because I want to make sure I stay employed. Okay. I have other means of income. And so it's not for that. So, but it is something that, 78% of the money that is raised goes toward ministry. How many ministries can make that argument? Mm-hmm. And so, so we're just asking if you can. So what we're doing though, for folks, we started doing this, is we're doing giveaways for anybody who does donate. The first 6 people in the month that donate, I'm not going to tell you what's left to choose from,
But we have different CDs or DVDs from our different conferences. We have one that's on the family, one that's on getting Christianity right, dealing with different Christian doctrines, and then one on presuppositional apologetics. So those are the conferences that you can get that you'll get. And the first person that donates in the month gets to choose which one they want. We also have some books. The book that we're doing for this month is a book that I interviewed on parenting, purposeful and persistent parenting. Drew, you need a copy of this. You got young kids. Actually, all three of you do. So you each seriously need it's one of the best books I've seen in recent years on parenting.
I just need to get my 3-year-old to like sit still.
Well, that's actually
Can't be done. Can't be done.
okay.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
You may laugh, but that's where this is going to help. You know, the reason they have the blue tape on there is because what they did was they taught their children boundaries by putting blue tape on the floor, so the kids knew where they can go and not go. And they started from a very early age learning about boundaries. And when I interviewed them, they told that they have friends of theirs that expanded it and had different color tape. So as the kids got older, some older kids that were allowed to get, do the sink, go to the sink or oven or things like that would have a different type of tape. So each great age knew what their boundaries were, which then kids got excited to get older to get into it's kind of like you graduate to different levels.
Well, that's interesting because whenever I'm cooking or my wife is cooking, Lawson loves to come up to the stove. And I'm always afraid that if I just look away for a second, he's gonna reach his hand up there and touch something.
And that's the whole thing of where they just do is they just put tape on the ground and said, okay, kids, you stay here. And the kids know this is, so they didn't have to have a play, like a play gym or whatever it is that you put the kid in and he can't get out.
Right.
No, they just started from the young age to teach the children about boundaries.
Interesting.
So, here someone is saying, okay, this is years worthwhile. So this is she's saying excited for your visit to the Philippines again. So now she interviewed me for the radio, so we're hoping that hoping to see her again. So so some others here are saying that they use tape. Darren says he uses tape, but Chris Honholz was saying 2 words, duct tape. So that was the different type of tape there, guys. So
Still effective though.
Still effective. So I hope this is helpful. I hope this has been valuable to you guys. I hope that if it was, you'd share it with others. Listen for the podcast, share that as well. And with that, we'll end with our closing that we started using regularly. So here we go.
All other religious systems are based on a system of morality of good works. What makes Christianity unique, it is not a system of morality. It is about Jesus Christ. Buddha is dead, Muhammad is dead, Joseph Smith is dead, Mary Baker Eddy is dead, but Jesus Christ rose from the dead. If Jesus Christ was not both fully man and fully God, there would be no payment of sin. This was a debate in the first century. Jesus Christ was fully man. It's important to note that he did not have a human father, therefore he did not inherit a sin nature. Jesus Christ not only had to be fully man, but he also had to be without sin, never breaking any part of God's law. If Jesus was not a man, then people would have no payment of sins. But Jesus Christ is also fully God. Jesus had to be God in order to pay an eternal fine. Only an eternal being can pay an eternal fine.